welcome to First Tuesdays, which is a monthly webinar offered by the Washington State Library on topics that are of interest to all types of libraries. And we have a really interesting presentation today. We have been working here at the State Library with an organization called WAServes, but I will get to that in just a second because I need to go through our basic information about First Tuesday. I'm Nono Burling. I'm your facilitator today, which just means I introduce and go over the technical things in the front. Speaking of technical, we have Jeremy Stroud and Joe Olivar, who are tech support. If anyone has any difficulties, they are going to put their contact information into the chat box. So look for the chat, and if you have any problems at all, you can contact one of them and they'll help you sort it out. Since we switched software, I don't think we've had a lot, but we're still here to help you. Let's see, this presentation is brought to you by the Washington State Library, like I mentioned, and our funder is the Institute of Museum and Library Services. I'm hearing some music in the background. Okay. And I just wanted to say for the attendees that once the webinar is over, and you close down the window, you'll see a 4-question survey, which for our funder, the IMLS, we need to gather information about the services that we provide. If you have the time and could fill it out, it's just a very quick survey. We'd really appreciate it. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about our presenters today. I mentioned that they work with an organization called WAServes, and I will let them explain it because they will do a better job than I, but I have a little bit of information about our 4 presenters today. Donald Lachman is a native of Seattle, and he mentions he's also a Husky, so we want to make sure you all know that. Any Cougs, just don't worry about it. He's a good guy. As a Vietnam-era vet, Donald served in the Army Medical Service Corps, and for over 2 decades, he's acted as a principal partner in a public affairs company that specializes in the use of best practices with high needs and high risk populations. Beginning in August 2007, Donald served as a special projects coordinator for leadership at the Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs. In this position, he experienced the best in communities and stakeholders across Washington State wanting to help veterans. Alliances established court and corrections-based programming, affordable housing, expanding service dog programming, tiny homes, and significant resource acquisitions. In March of 2018, Donald accepted a position as Special Programs Officer with the WestCare Foundation, a vital program partner with the Department of Veterans Affairs and Corrections. Next, we have Andrea Talmadge. Andrea has lived most of her life, most of her childhood, hopping from base to base as the daughter of a Marine Corps veteran. So she's got a lot of personal information with this population. She has, and as a result of this, she has firsthand experience of the struggles that military families face, including deployments, transitioning back into the civilian world. She's passionate about helping veterans and their families in becoming self-sufficient and living fuller, happier lives. She's been involved with the America Serves initiative since 2017 and has seen firsthand the immense positive impact that care coordination has on communities across the countries. She's the Pacific Northwest Regional Coordinator for WAServes and is responsible for managing the coordination center, triaging cases, and the point of contact for human and healthcare providers and the veteran community. We also have Ryan Neighbors who will be speaking. Ryan was a service officer for 18 years. He has worked with disabled American veterans, the Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs, and the federal VA in Auburn, Washington. And he notes that he himself is a veteran. And finally, we have Mike Schindler, who heads the operation of military families, and he's a leader in managing the WAServes initiative in Washington State. So now I'm going to mute my microphone and turn this over to the people you all came to hear. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you very much, Nono. This is Donald Lachman. I'd like to first thank you for that introduction and also thank the State Library and Cindy and Jeff and Nono and the other leaders for their support and help with us in terms of this initiative to reach veterans and to help them benefit from their resources and services that are exclusive for them. And we hope that today, with you joining us, that this will be valuable information and that you'll share this information and realize that libraries are in a unique position to help ignite the economic healthcare engine, which is unique to veterans. And to start with, Washington State, just some background, remains a hub for the global war on terrorism. And we're entering, I think, our 19th year in this war. Deployments continue out of the Pacific Northwest every month. Training is a high priority. When you go to our military bases, they are bases that are mission focused in terms of what's occurring in the global war on terrorism. Each war has its own unique sort of characteristics, and this war is no different, and just the length of it sets it apart. But it also has its signature wounds, which are traumatic brain injuries, PTSD. Also, orthopedic injuries are a serious problem, as well as issues around military sexual trauma. We know this war is different in just survivability. 90% of the wounds that were fatal during the Vietnam War are survivable now. And what that means, and that's fantastic, it's the advances in training, in body armor, in medical and trauma medicine, but it also means that we have thousands of young men and women who are living the rest of their life often compromised by very serious injuries. And so it has an effect on their entire life. We know the role of women in the military has changed, and we've seen it occur. They face all the risk that their colleagues face in war now. The National Guard, when I served during the Vietnam era, the National Guard was a place where people went so you didn't have to go into the military, you didn't get drafted. So now it's an integral part of our military force, and they continue to be called up in all states. As we look at this, Washington State has over 600,000 veterans that they call our state home. Over half of these are 65 years of age and older. We have one of the largest concentrations in the country of homeless veterans here. In fact, we're one of the top 5 areas in the country for homeless veterans is Washington State. You know, one of the things that has happened in this war is that we have developed and seen developed an amazing 4-tiered public-private network of federal, state, county, municipal, and community-based services and nonprofits to meet the needs of our veterans. And it is so different from the Vietnam era in terms of when people left the military and you know, the home loan, some education benefits, maybe some healthcare. Those were the sort of the primary ones. But now we are blessed with an incredible menu, robust menu of resources, programs, and partnerships across the state. And as I've mentioned to people, we see the best, I think, in people and partnerships in our communities across the state. People want to help veterans. People want to, do something to assist them. And part of our job and our role here is to help them in doing that. And when I talk about community-based partners, that means like organizations that have a long history of helping, of services, and that includes the YWCA, the Goodwill, Catholic Community Services, a whole new set of community-based organizations are all now part of that service network that we have available for our veterans and their families. I have a provocative title for this program, and I talk about thousands eligible, millions unclaimed, and that's absolutely true. Surveys and experience validate that few veterans, healthcare providers, or social workers are informed on the vast and valuable inventory of resources and services exclusively available to veterans. And this is where a collaboration between libraries and WAServes comes together in terms of addressing that. We bring incredible experience and expertise in knowing how to navigate that very complex system. And what happens is, of course, it benefits everyone in the system when you bring that sort of expertise together. And it's exciting to be part of this. This was funded by as part of a national movement or initiative to improve coordination, advocacy, and also accountability of services, because that's been a problem. And we've read about it in the newspapers and others where the VA and other providers have not delivered or failed to deliver what's been promised. And overall, we have a really great partnership and experience with the VA, but part of the value of WAServes is by having that sort of tracking, by having that coordination, we also have transparency and accountability, and it makes a big difference in the delivery of services. And so at this point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to turn this over to Andrea Talmadge, who is sort of our foundation here, I want to say our flight director at the WAServes Coordination and Advocacy Center. And so Andrea, can I turn it over to you?
Certainly. Thank you, Donald. Hello, my name is Andrea. I am the regional coordinator for WAServes Greater Puget Sound. And I just want to say I'm really happy to be here today. It's a privilege to speak to you about WAServes and how we can be a helpful tool to be able to serve you and to serve the veteran community. I wanted to start though with a little background information. So WAServes is a coordinated network of services, resources, and care that provides direct access for veterans, service members, and their families. We provide 15 areas of service, and we currently serve 8 counties. However, we will assist any veteran in need across Washington State. So I have a little bit of a PowerPoint here that I'm going to go through as I continue through this. Let's see if I can get this to go. So WAServes is a subpart of a national nonprofit organization called AmericaServes. Our network has 14 serves across the United States and soon to be 17 with addition of San Diego, California, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Long Island, New York. We are rapidly growing and will continue to expand across the US to serve our veteran community. And what this means is if we have a veteran moving to another state that has a SERS coordination center, we can connect that veteran to services before he even enters that state. This makes their move a really smooth transition. Let me see if I can, it looks like it's going to be a little slow here. So our network consists of vetted service providers that are connected together through our coordination center. So a few good examples of what our network providers are would be St. Vincent de Paul, Work of Honor, Wounded Warrior Project, and Washington State Department of Veteran Affairs. We have 2 types of providers, that's what we like to call them. We have a 2-way door or a 1-way door. So a 2-way door would give a provider who refers a veteran into our network and also will receive referrals for a veteran on their behalf. A 1-way door would be a provider who only sends a referral into the network on behalf of a veteran who is in need. So this is a little bit of information that I'm going to bring up, and I apologize for the slow loading here. I thought it would come up all in one piece. So when a veteran needs services in the past, these are the struggles that the veteran would actually kind of face when they're trying to get services from either the federal VA or from maybe a housing provider or for financial resources. The majority of the veterans, what they're facing is barriers trying to seek services. They don't know where to look. They're very frustrated with the paperwork or the forms that have to be filled up. And many times you're going to fill those forms numerous times for every single agency. They apply for something and find out they're not eligible, or they find out that they need more paperwork, and it just becomes a frustration and they drop through the cracks and they kind of just go away. Now on our provider side, they also face almost the same difficulties. They receive a veteran who needs services, but they can't help them and they don't know where to turn. So they do the old-fashioned route, which is pick up the phone and start calling around for the people they know in their network to say, hey, I have a veteran who needs help. I just don't know where to send them. So then they just kind of give a phone number or they point down the road and ask the veteran to go down there. And again, the veteran gets lost in the cracks there. Also, the veteran doesn't know if the provider doesn't know if the veteran received the service. So if they send someone down the road, how do they know that veteran actually got the help they need? So this is basically a barrier that currently that most veterans face. But fortunately, what we have now is Washington Serves. So a veteran can get service in two ways. They can either call in using the 1-877-515-7848 number. That's a manned line with a real person who will be able to speak to the veteran and be able to screen to find out what services are needed. Or the veteran can actually go online to WAServes.org, and they can put in their request for services, and that will come straight to the coordination center. So there's two ways they can get help. At the coordination center level, we have experienced navigators and who we compare, as Donald had mentioned previously, to air traffic controllers that connect the veteran to the appropriate provider based on type of service need, program, and eligibility criteria. And that means that the veteran will connect to the appropriate provider who understands their unique situation and provide the services in a timely manner. So previously, as you can see here, a lot of confusion. And then after the launch of Washington Serves, we have the veteran who enters coordination center. He gets screened for services, and then we provide the services through our providers in our network. I'm just waiting to see what's going to come up next here. So America Serves, we offer services that most organizations don't offer. They are basically going to reach out to the military members, make sure that they get the services that they need. So I'm going to leave this part up. This will be Mike Schindler's part, but I'm just going to go forward on my side. So once we serve the veteran, we stay with them and we stay in contact with that veteran because we want to make sure he gets the services that he needs. And one way we do that is by calling, finding out what they need, if there's additional services, and sometimes just offering emotional support as they go through difficult times. And that's really what we're here for. We're here to serve our veterans and be able that we can, hold their hands and make sure they get the services that they need. And that's going to bring us to Ryan, who will talk about some of the outreach that he does with the veterans in the community and the services that he does for the providers. Ryan?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan. I'm glad to be here today. And yes, I would like to talk quickly about a prior job I had and how it actually relates to what we do here in Washington Serves. So my prior job, I actually worked in rural communities, and libraries are the beacon for help for a lot of veterans in rural communities. So partnering with a library in Randall, we were able to work with a veteran, and this veteran was in need of a pension. So he had actually worked with several veteran service organizations, had been collecting evidence over the years, and everywhere he went, he talked to them, and he wouldn't even get the claim in because people would tell him he wasn't even eligible. The one thing I liked, though, about the library is the amount of resources that were available there. We had Wi-Fi, we had, dedicated lines for securing the internet, getting on the internet, looking up books. We had resources from the federal regulations for the VA, so I could look up regulations. So it's a natural fit. So with one of our partners, we actually met with a veteran. We applied for the benefit, and it did take about 6 months for the pension to come through, but he was awarded it, and he was extremely happy. And then once that word got out, we call it the grapevine spread that he was able to be helped. It just is a natural transition to get more work. So one of the ones I'd like to talk about recently that we've helped a veteran was we actually had a homeless veteran. And one of the things is that she was actually attending school, and she knew that she needed to be there for school. And as a result of just working with us and with some of our partners, and this is a great part about America Serves, Washington Serves, is that even if there's a resource out there that's not in our network yet, we work to onboard them eventually, but we will work with them, getting them in our network. So there was a need out there for her, and the need was just navigating the VA site, trying to get enrolled in VA healthcare. So she's a college student and, like I said, homeless, living on the streets. We were able to work with her to get her enrolled in VA healthcare. And once she did that, all these opportunities popped up. She was able to now be more successful in school. She was able to participate in a work study program. She's no longer homeless. And I believe last time I actually talked to her, she actually graduated. So she graduated from the college that she was attending. Another one I'd like to talk about too is just the amount of money. So I started serving veterans when I got out of the Coast Guard in 1999. And let's put this in perspective. The VA budget alone in 1999 was $36 billion. The budget for fiscal year 2018 has a $12 billion increase. It's $190 billion. So let's talk about that. On average, that's a $9 billion a year increase. And the VA, I believe now, is the second largest federal agency behind the Department of Defense. So we're living in unprecedented times, and it's just amazing stuff that's going on at the VA. I would suggest also that the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have also created a lot more veterans seeking services. They are a lot more knowledgeable about the benefits that they're entitled to. When they get out of the military, they know that they need to file their claim. They're allowed to file claims ahead of time now, up to 6 months prior to discharge. They're also filing for more types of claims than ever before. So Vietnam veterans might put in for 2 or 3 claims. Sometimes veterans getting back from the wars from Iraq and Afghanistan are putting 18 to 20 claims in at any time. And we also see in this big jump over the last 17, 18 years in VA spending is that we have a huge aging veteran population. And they are actually they need actually a lot of services. We see that they are more willing to apply for disability compensation now or pensions than ever before. And I think this has to do a lot with care. So as people get older, they might have never thought about doing a claim, but now that has changed, especially with healthcare costs going up and long-term care costs. We also see part of this $190 billion budget that a lot of that money goes to healthcare cost, increase in healthcare cost. Healthcare is not getting cheaper. It's one thing that keeps rising in cost. And then I would like to talk quickly about just navigating the VA. So navigating the VA can be difficult, and a lot of veterans, they just don't want to do it. And I don't blame them, because it can be frustrating at times. And that's why as a navigator, I will work with our clients to help them navigate through the entire system. And one of the best systems that we actually do, we work with one of our resources, is a VA homeless veterans call center. So we can actually call 24 hours a day, normally work with a veteran and call that number. They match them quickly to, they do an assessment, can take 15 to 20 minutes, which is not that long a time. They send a request actually to the local VA hospital, and they have a case manager contact them normally within 24 hours. So that is huge. And that, of course, the 24 hours is during working days. So like I normally try to get in touch with them on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. If we get in touch with them on a Friday, that's going to be a Monday call. But they work really good working with them on their resources that they can take advantage of immediately, like housing, places to get food. And like I said, good thing about them is a quick response, 24 hours. And then also I follow up with a veteran 1 or 2 days after they have received that phone call to make sure that they know what's out there, what's available, And again, it's a longer process, but once they meet with the housing coordinator, they get on a list. That list can lead to a voucher, and then the voucher can lead to housing. So follow-up along the way is very essential, and I think that's a very important thing that we do with Washington Serves, is that we stay in contact with our clients. And I would suggest that veterans are very resourceful. I've had many clients where we have like 4 issues open, and through working with them to resolve an issue, they drop off, or I have to call them back and say, oh, by the way, thank you so much for helping me with that one issue. I was able to solve the other 3 issues right away. So that's remarkable that that happens. The other issue too is when I work with veterans, especially homeless veterans, is that I have them, they are part of the solution. I ask them what they're willing to commit to. So with my 18 years of being a service officer and working in rural communities and all these kind of things, is we always have to let the veteran be part of the solution, ask them what they're willing to commit to. So even though we're on the line with the VA and they suggest going to a shelter, that might not be a solution for them. So that's why we work with them to address those issues. And again, follow-up is very important along the way.
Ryan,
and then,
this is Donald. I was wondering, you had highlighted again the aging veterans population that you're seeing, the Vietnam era vet, and you talked about a pension.
Yes.
Can you, because that's one of the underutilized sort of resources that we see out there, along with things like aid and attendance for assistance. Could you talk about a little bit about that pension and what it involves? Because
sure.
We see those vets that are getting about $600 a month Social Security or so, you know, and
actually, sure. I'd like to actually talk about a quick thing that we just actually had a veteran contact us, and we actually worked outside the network because they wanted to go with a specific veteran service organization that's not with us. But this veteran basically was receiving about $550 a month. This veteran actually had wartime service and was over 65. If they're under 65, they have to be considered totally disabled. But I would really like to spotlight how easy the process is and how it's changed over the years to make it easier for veterans to apply for this benefit. At one time, like I said, it was pretty lengthy form, asked for a lot of information. But now with the Pension Management Center, they try to make this application as simple as possible to qualify veterans for this. And so basically this veteran that we helped was getting $550 from Social Security. He applied for the benefit, and within, I think it was less than 30 days, the VA had asked for more information, and then additional 10 days after that, they had made a decision. So we're talking 40 days from initially filing the claim to actually being awarded it.
And Ryan, could you explain about the VA? They have I want to say a cap or amount that they say a veteran must have as a monthly income, or they're going to address that gap with this pension.
Right. So sometimes we call it in the service group like a top up. So dollar for dollar offset by Social Security. So example in this one where I was talking about the $550, the veteran was awarded the $1,100. So he actually got an additional check from the VA for $550 in addition to his Social Security check. So just imagine living off of $550 a month and then being awarded additional $550. The veteran actually told me when he was getting the $550 living on that, he was in some unstable housing. And as a result of getting the $550 additional, he was actually able to move to stable housing. And he said the amount of drama in his life significantly reduced. He actually told me that he says if he wants to watch drama, he can turn on the TV now and watch it. So
that's great. You know, the other thing that happens with this that and maybe you could talk about, Ramon, is that when we turn on that pension, we also open up the funnel there for other benefits and like durable medical equipment, hearing aids, glasses, you know.
So I call those, Donald, I call those ancillary benefits. So those can open up things like, could be things like they could pay for dental care, additional durable equipment. Yes, all those kind of things open up the doors. So imagine, we always talk about the VA being two different houses. However, like I said, once we get the pension or this, we ask for service connection disability, that opens the door to that second house, the healthcare side of things. And that really allows the healthcare to free up other resources. So yeah, it is a game changer. It is definitely a game changer.
It really is. And could you talk a few minutes, because you had mentioned again with that aging veterans and and with our disabled veterans population that we're seeing because of this long war, more and more, they want to stay in the community. They want to live safely in the community. Talk a little bit about the aid in attendance and home bond allowance sort of pensions.
Sure. So regular aid in attendance is where basically a veteran needs additional aid, and that can be because he or she needs additional aids to living, basically like making sure that they can take a bath, that they can feed themselves, they can groom themselves, all these additional things. So there's actually a form that we can have the doctor complete. We can apply for that additional benefit, and then they can receive additional financial compensation as a result of that. So one of the great things about that is a veteran that might need the additional aid and attendance, that can be in addition to the money that they're getting from their pension. And then there's also programs on the disability compensation side of things also. So that is a great point about that. And then I would like to also state that sometimes you're talking about some of the additional benefits like the hearing aids, and I've actually come across quite a few veterans that have come to the office and talked to me over the years about applying for those, and come to find out that they just don't even know that there was an issue with asbestos, that this veteran actually had asbestosis, and he was just trying to find out about getting some hearing aids. And we actually filed the claim, and the VA granted him 100%. So he went from living on a fixed income to getting around $3,000 a month. So it's very true. You just don't know what to ask for, and that's why we're here. That's why I bring 18 years of doing this.
You know, Ryan, you mentioned something really important there. Washington State, we have thousands and thousands of veterans who were exposed to Agent Orange and other toxins like that, or were Marines and were exposed to the contaminated water at the military installations, and are entitled to full health care and benefits.
Yes, so on that aspect, a few years ago, we're continuing to roll out more and more issues that are related to Agent Orange as studies come up. You know, some of the big ones were like prostate cancer, exposure to Agent Orange can develop into diabetes type 2. So there's a lot of veterans out there that don't even know about these benefits. I would actually suggest that our returning veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan are actually helping Vietnam veterans. They're talking to them about, hey, are you getting your benefits? Have you applied for this? You know, and people, as a result of that, they're actually seeking the benefits. So as the regulations change to add more service connection presumptive conditions from Agent Orange, more veterans are seeking those benefits, which is great. That's what our country's about. We take care of our veterans. That's why the VA is the second largest federal agency, and that's why they have a $190 billion budget. That where we put our money is where it really counts, and that's true in this country. We take care of our veterans.
Wow. So, yeah. Ryan, you're doing some amazing work. Could you just take a moment, because I know that you've also done some outreach to I think
yes.
and Randall.
Yes, so we do that, and also I'd like to talk about Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs. I make outreaches there honestly daily. One of the outreaches to Randall was amazing. Like I said, from our work in previous aspects, is working with the Randall Library, and the people over there have just been amazing. I think that has to do a lot with our past success that we had in the prior program, and I think that would be an excellent pilot program to work is with the Randall Library and Mary Prophet there. She's just amazing. She's a veteran herself, a proud Army officer that retired from the Army.
Cool.
So yeah, just amazing stuff. And then like I said, with outreach, we always like to work with our partners and getting the word out about that. That's great. And then the great part about working with our partners is they're also inviting us to their events. So just continuously improving what we do is amazing.
Well, Ryan, I wanted to mention one other scenario maybe you could talk a few minutes about, which is we have a lot of disabled veterans who are receiving a disability award from the VA and benefits and services, but yet they're living in their car and getting $3,000 a month. And we know some of them go for refuge in libraries and hang out during the day, and it's a distressing situation. Could you talk a little bit about the Veterans Estate Management Program?
Sure. So I actually worked for the state of Washington, and I was actually a program manager there when I was in charge of one of the cases there. I had a close to 120 caseload. So with this program, the veteran has to be deemed incompetent for financial purposes. We charge a small fee, and depending on the Social Security Administration or the VA, for Social Security is normally like $38, $41 a month that we charge. But we ensured that their housing was taken care of. We made sure that their food was provided for, clothing, all those basic needs were done. And the first thing we actually do is that we would look at the money that was coming in. We would set up a budget. So again, the big priority is to make sure their mortgage is paid, their rent is paid, whatever's paid, so that they have housing, food. And then at the end of the day, we would give them what's called a living allowance. So depending on their budget, we would send a weekly check for them to make sure that they got money for doing, like going to the movies or whatever they wanted to do. So that program was remarkable. It's actually run by Dean Motoyama. He's a program manager there. And I'm trying to think of the caseload now. It's close to 400 people that are currently served in Washington State. And as the director of Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs says, Alfie, she says it's really a homeless prevention program.
Absolutely, really, yeah.
And these people will, like I said, I'm going to be honest, if I ever had a family member that came into that situation, I would immediately get them involved with it because they take such good care of these people. I would put that payee program against any payee program in the entire nation of how good they take care of their veterans in the payee program.
And you brought up, I think the other part here is that really by law, VA disability benefits cannot be used to support a drug addiction or alcohol addiction. It's really for those basic human needs of shelter and food and such. And so, and I think with the opioid addiction crisis we're having now, it just programs like the Veterans Estate Management Program become real vital in reducing the harm that can be associated with those.
It does. And one of the other points I'd like to really bring out too is that whenever a veteran is actually on that program and decides that they, have some stability in their life, and we actually work with them to get them off the program. We actually work on them with what's called self-directed pay. So let's say a veteran did have a drug issue or had a gambling problem and they got that under control. We would actually work with them to allow them to get off the program. So like I said, one of the good things because we respect our clients, we really honestly respect our clients a lot, that we're working with them to move them forward in the direction that they want to be in. So I've actually lost, some through my caseload, but that's a good thing. I lost them for a good reason, is that they're now sustainable on their own out there. So
that's excellent. Well, as you can tell, we have a lot that we can offer in terms of a partnership with libraries and work with great partners. Thank you, Ryan. Is there any sort of closing or summary thoughts you want to make?
Yeah. I would like to quickly say, I've been doing this for 18 plus years, and this Washington Serves initiative is just amazing because, like I said, those 18 years of being a service officer, I always had veterans could come in the office and I'm applying for their benefits or whatever. And then they asked me for additional benefits like housing or this or that. And to be honest, I had to go to my Rolodex, and my Rolodex is outdated. And I would send them down the road to see Ray or John or this other person at this other location. And I'm not even sure that person even works there anymore. I don't get follow through with them. We're disconnected, and I might meet the person in the grocery store, 2 years later and say, hey, how did that go? And I just don't know. But with this program, that really covers those gaps. So I'm really happy to be part of this entire program, because it does provide a complete wraparound.
It really does. And, and I think the other thing is, as you talked about, the turning on that economic healthcare engines of veterans, particularly for rural veterans, suddenly when I'm no longer, don't have to go to the food bank, I don't have to get utility vouchers to cover my bills. I don't have to, I'm no longer a taker. I have an adequate income and resources. It really changes the dynamics of a person's life.
I've had so many people, Donald, I'm glad you said that. I've had so many people that end up volunteering at the food bank now as a result. Veterans, we are great people because we give back to the people that take care of us. That's amazing. Part of being a veteran is that I know so many veterans I've helped that give back to the same places that help them. So
absolutely. Well, thank you, Ryan.
Sure.
I'd like to now transition and turn it over to Mike Schindler, and have him talk a little bit about more detailed specifics about Washington Serves and some of the inner workings of it too, in terms of from the provider side. Mike?
Yeah, hello everybody. Can you hear me?
You bet.
Okay, good. Well, Mike Schindler. I head up Operation Military Family, which oversees the whole Washington Serves initiative and this great team. And I think everybody heard from the team why they're so excited about this. I myself served in the United States Navy. And so for me to be a part of this team and to be able to help our providers coordinate care is a big step forward in the social services arena. And to have the libraries participate in this arena, I think is instrumental. The reason being is I think in every community there's a library, there's a VFW and a church. And that's oftentimes where people gravitate to. And for folks to be able to come into the library, and for you as librarians to be an objective resource, number one, and number two, not to be able to have this resource behind you and not try to figure out where you need to send somebody except to one location, being Washington Serves, and then having the peace of mind knowing that that individual is taken care of, is a service that we're honored to bring to you, number one. But for you to be part of that community solution is important for us. So as you guys see on the PowerPoint there, some of the other markets that we're in, we pay close attention to how many people we're serving in that market, what the outcomes of those services are we hitting a threshold that is good, meaning for every individual that we serve, do we help them come to a positive resolution, meaning do we actually help them get the service they need? And I think for libraries to be able to track that, to be able to know what happens to referrals that you make, will help you with both your customer service angle, but more importantly, certainly for your IMLS grant, to be able to have that type of data available to you is something that we'll be able to provide you. So, Andrea, if you want to advance the slide there, we'll go ahead and talk about, the connections, where you can connect to the people that you heard from today. Donald, Ryan, Andrea, these are individuals that can answer your questions. These are individuals that can respond to your needs. And I think, one of the big deals from a provider standpoint is having that peace of mind of knowing when we make a referral or that we receive a referral, it's number one, going to be handled, and number two, it's going to be something that we can handle. And that's what Washington Serves will do for the libraries, is we'll be your concierge team behind the scenes. We'll be the team that you don't necessarily have to know who the housing provider is, or you don't necessarily need to know how the individual gets benefits help. You just need to know that if the individual needs help with their benefits, if you put them into Washington Serves, we will help them get that, and you'll be able to see the outcome of that. So again, we want to be a resource to the library. That's our way of giving back. I think libraries have been a resource to communities for a very long time, and now we want to help place another foundation under you all so that you provide better service and continued service in the community. So, Donald, does that kind of frame up what you wanted to hear?
It does. Plus, could you talk a little bit about security and management of security within the Washington Serves system and our partners?
Yeah, sure. You know, it's interesting. Security is one thing as providers in the field. Anytime a veteran would come to us, we would just say, okay, what do you need? And then we'd pick up the phone, to Ryan's point, or send an email, and we would just take care of it. And I don't want to say we didn't pay attention or weren't concerned with security. We just knew that we weren't going to do anything wrong with it, with the information that we were receiving. When we started putting technology under this, we had to fall within compliance of HIPAA and, broad agency agreements and participation agreements. And all this is handled within our team. So what we do is anybody that's a provider, we require them to sign a number of agreements, saying, number one, you won't violate the terms of this initiative. You will hold the data secure. We will know if you're not. And then from a veteran's perspective, we have them sign a consent that allows us to work with them and share their information to providers that we warrant can actually help them solve their need. So again, everything, we have to fall within both federal and state HIPAA requirements. And this initiative has received both what's called an enterprise agreement with the VA, as well as with DOD, with Department of Defense. And so we've hit the utmost levels of security when it comes to this initiative. So we want the librarians and all of you to know that we take security, number one, very seriously, and number two, we've hit all compliance requirements needed for this initiative.
Mike, could you talk a little bit about if providers in our network, what sort of commitment do they have to make to this initiative ongoing as a provider?
Yeah, ongoing as a provider, what we require is that, number one, that anytime we send a referral to them, that they respond within 24 to 48 hours to that referral, number one. Number two is if there is something that they don't handle personally as a provider in the network, and they have another request from that veteran, that they actually take that request and put it through the provider network, that they actually put it over to the coordination team to help them triage the issue. So what we ask for is excellent customer service, and that they update what's going on with that so that we can track the outcomes. It's not a high demand request. Andrea and Ryan and the team are really good at just occasionally providing nudges, because we know that providers get busy. We know that as librarians, when you put in a request, just understand that that request will be responded to within a 24 to 48 hour response time.
Excellent, excellent. When for our providers, if you look at sort of a calendar year, how do we stay in contact? How do we continue training and sharing information? Because as we know, the systems is always evolving, adding and changing, eligibility, new programs. How do we manage that part of the relationship?
Yeah, so our team is really good about staying in touch. I mean, that's one of the things that we have to do in this network is constant, I don't want to say constant, but frequent contact with the providers. We make sure that we do monthly visits with our providers. We host monthly webinars or what are called community of practice calls for those that want to plug in and get updated on what's going on both in the network, but what's also going on in the industry. So there's quarterly, we do live forums, and we pull providers together to do live forums, trainings, talk about things that are issues, what can we resolve as a team. So we really take this and treat this as a team effort. It is not something that we as a team manage and dictate. It's something that we as a team work to facilitate and coordinate so that we as providers can really work together to solve community-based problems. And libraries, I think, are at a great position where you guys all hear oftentimes more so than we might, things that are going on in the community. And for you to be a part of that conversation to help us shape solutions in the community, I think is going to be important moving forward.
This is Nono, and I wanted to jump in with a question for you. So
Sure.
you guys are obviously just incredibly inspirational, and the work you do is so important. And I suspect that everyone listening to this webinar is asking the same thing that's going through my mind is, how do I connect to you? If I want, as a librarian, if I want to help my patrons, what's the first step? Let's say I have someone come in who has, say, a housing need, and I learn that they are a vet. What would be the step that I would take, or what kind of information or handouts could I have in my library that I could give to these people so that they could make that connection?
Yeah, so libraries, we have brochures and we have what are called palm cards that have detailed information on the network, number one, that you could hand out, and we'll provide that to you free of charge. For you to be a provider in the network, and I know Donald has been working with a handful of libraries on this, for any library that says, I want to be a part of this network, you've got the emails up on that screen. You can email any one of us, and then what we'll do is we'll send you a registration link to be evaluated as a provider. And there's a process for that. You have to fill out an application. Again, it's free to be a provider in this network. And then once we review it and we accept it, we understand exactly, number one, what you can offer, but number two, how you want to be a part of the network. Then you go through a 1-hour webinar training on the system, on the platform. We train you up on what it means to navigate the platform, what happens when you receive an email referral, or how do you make a referral. We train you up on that. And again, it just takes a little bit of investment of time, but it's very simple to be a partner in this network.
So it sounds to me like libraries could kind of go two routes. One, they could actually sign up to be a provider, but the second, if they don't feel like they have the time or capability or staffing to actually do that, that they could just simply request brochures and information from you all that they could hand out to their patrons. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, and that's what Andrea was talking about in terms of we have sort of a two-way door. Some that are providers and going, back and forth, and others it's a one-way where they're sending the referrals to us. Our vision, and Jeff Martin has been helpful in this, is like for participating libraries, we'd like to have sort of a full menu here of looking at one, designing a decal on their door or something that marks their library as a partner in serving veterans in Washington State. Number two, a small type kiosk that we have some select brochures and information on where the librarian can direct a veteran or a family member who has questions, and then what I want to say, that's a static kiosk. And then we'd also like to have what I call active kiosks, where there's a laptop there and the veteran or a volunteer at the library could help a veteran access right into the system and into the Washington Serve system. So there's a number of ways that I could see this working. And last and not least is the Monroe Library, and as Ryan mentioned in Randall, we'd like to be more than just this relationship. How could we help support doing some special programming or events or outreach for veterans in your community? Could we? And we work closely with our local partners to, for the veteran services. We always turn to them as sort of leaders as we do things in the community also, because every county has a county veterans office and has a local service organizations also. So I'll stop there.
I have not seen any questions come in so far on the chat, but if anyone has questions, please type them into the chat. And it looks like we have about 5 more minutes if there are questions coming in. It's absolutely.
Well, I'd like to mention one other thing, Nono, which is sort of the future. And Washington Serves and our mothership, Operation Military Families, and our foundation partner are working to get advanced technology-based services with telemedicine and teleservice. And again, we think libraries are just a natural fit for that sort of extension of services. And the VA is the leader in the world in teleservices, offering over 40 different health services through that. And the research shows in the data that veterans and patients are very, very satisfied with the quality of services and the outcomes from that, that convenience and that access.
That's excellent. So Jeff Martin has a suggestion. He said, take a moment to talk about the Kuby and how libraries can utilize that. Yes.
What Jeff's talking about is Kuby is a new platform. We've been working with Integrated Health Solutions, and it is a device that brings particular capabilities for a high definition tablet that we use for mobile teleservice. And it allows certain controls to occur from the provider side of it, the originator, and in terms of motion, engaging, and sharing information. And it's part of how we see the future of working with teleservice and libraries is using this platform. It is HIPAA compliant, the Defense Department security compliant when we turn it on. So, and to us, again, that ability for a veteran who's living in a rural area to turn on that monitor and to be able to talk to somebody like Ryan with their experience and expertise to help guide them would be sort of a game changer in terms of service level at a local library. Does that help?
Jeff, is that what you were hoping they would speak about? Well, I have not seen more questions come in. This has been a just fascinating presentation, and I know that this session is being recorded, and are planning to write up an informative blog post with the session that where we can provide this information to hopefully to an even wider audience, because I think you're right, and I thank Jeff for really building this partnership, because I think partnering between libraries in your organization is excellent. I know when I worked as a reference librarian and you got those questions, it would just have been wonderful to have one place to send them to that you know that they will receive help. And I think you guys are just doing great work.
Well, thank you, Nono. And you know, this would not have happened, as I don't know if we mentioned that this has been funded by the Schultz Family Foundation of the Starbucks founder, Howard Schultz. And so we know that he has a commitment to veterans and their families and has looked at different ways to serve them and support them. And we feel it's just a real privilege that he's turned to this model, this service, as a way that he wants to meet that mission and the goal there for the Family Foundation. And so we're excited to be part of that. And we really believe part of our future is that collaboration with our libraries, and are excited to work with you and our colleagues across the state.
Well, thank you so much to all four of you for all your time and thought and your hard work for the veterans of our state. We really appreciate your being here to talk about your program and the work that you do. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a team effort.
Okay. All right, and thanks to all the attendees for coming. I hope you share this information with your colleagues, because as we've said again and again, this is just such a great fit and a wonderful organization. So